Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which if you recall is after Hector pretty much found himself in the middle of the Eye Valley by himself, and apparently another part of Hector was speaking to him and claiming sort of to be like the other Hector in a way, sort of how Rain is Cadgan's other self in a way, his brother, but also like another Cadgan altogether who goes by a different name. So yeah, Hector is not in a really good spot, unfortunately, and neither is Silverith because he was betrayed by the Duke, I believe that's his title, Manuelino. So yeah, it's a whole lot of bad stuff happening, and this is all culminating towards the climax, which is in the next update, unfortunately. But yeah, so like this is gonna be the lead up to that. Anywho, what else? I believe the other Inquisitor, the one that would be, I suppose, Silverith's superior, is currently enlisting the aid of the town, as well as Irnin, in order to try to, I suppose, help Cadgan from their side. But yeah, so we're gonna see what Cadgan is gonna do, because he's the one that decided to go into the Eye Valley himself in order to try to save Hector. But yeah, so Hector's in trouble, Cadgan's probably gonna be in trouble, Silverith is in trouble, so yeah, everyone's in trouble. Anyways, so without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. Act 3, Chapter 5, Hector. The expedition leaves the chorus of insects behind as they reach the rim of the crater in which rests the city. Nearing the edge, the tall grass gives way to a pale material, somewhere between bark and stone. The smell of thousands of flowers is replaced by much fainter, sweeter scent, and all noise disappears, leaving the cavern wrapped in a cold silence. The paved zigzaggy trail, once used by the ancient wolves of Renai to safely enter and exit the crater, descends into a gentle downward slope until reaching a large cobblestone road. Despite the superfluous differences, the road is made from the same hybrid material, halfway between wood and mineral, as the trail before it. The path forward is lined on both sides by pulsing masses of purple vines, leaving the way clear to those seeking the Forbidden City just a few kilometers ahead. If not for the vines, it seemed as though ancient Renai was simply slumbering, frozen in the moment the wolves sealed it away. However, the illusion doesn't last long. As soon as the expedition makes it to the city proper, they are surrounded by a constant pulsing. It sounds so grave that it shakes their very core. But it's when they witness the walls of the nearby buildings moving and throbbing like massive organs, that the bark of the nearby trees opening into countless eyes, that the veil of their ignorance is pulled back. They are eavesdropping to the heartbeat of a hidden colossus. They strut in and trod on its calloused skin. The vines around the expedition awaken from their slumber and stir. Be careful. There's glasses scattered all over the floor. What the hell? The commotion rouses Silverith from his unconscious state, and pushing through the feverish state brought by his injuries, he opens his eyes. What catches his eyes is not the tall building nor the unnatural branches sprouting out from them and rising higher and twisting into spirals. No, what enraptures him is a shimmering star above, shimmering within these spirals. He squints and looks around, finding many similar constructions, and as the worst of the fever wanes, he realizes his mistake. Not a star, but countless pieces of glass capping dozens of similarly twisted towers in ancient Renai. Silverith has heard before of sigil-based magic traditions that developed ways to maintain spells for decades or even centuries. Recalling the large glass cube containing a rune in the Duke's museum, he realizes that one of the many shattered ones here must have been an attempt at preserving a spell, one they thought would help keep the eye at bay, most likely. Encased in glass, the rune would be preserved for centuries against the intemporaries, with no need for anyone to step into the city to replace any decaying artifact. But after the breaching of the seal 11 years ago, Nature's hold in the city waned. Slowly but surely, the eye's influence reached for the ruins, coiled around them, and with incredible force, wrapped around, pressured, and crushed them into pieces. The result is plain to see all around them. And here is the expedition now, in the sight of a dark god's awakening, without the lullaby that once put it to sleep, nor the protection of the glass-encased runes. The dragon hadn't even intended to come this close, unless it proved absolutely necessary. He must do something, or they will all die here, assuming there isn't a fate worse than death awaiting them. By then, even the most optimistic and delusional soldiers realize that they are not safe. Especially not with the Inquisitor, who was supposed to be their protector, lying injured on the back of one of the beasts, fastened with rope and restrained with handcuffs. Some fear the Duke, some simply are complacent and don't like to give much thought to their boss's orders, much less their consequences. But even they are awakening to the reality of their situation. Your Grace, surely we've seen enough. Shall we turn back? What are you saying? Are you so short-sighted? It's all so fascinating. Wherever I look, there is a new treasure trove of mysteries to unravel. By God, I cannot even pick which one to start with. Perhaps I was too humble in my expectations for this expedition. There could be much more here to discover than the fifth layer, even if that still ends up being my crowning achievement. The Duke's eyes dance frantically, wanting to look at the giant branches, the fleshy walls, the eyes in the bark, the strange sea within the canopy of the largest tree above them, and then back again from the start. Down a nearby street, he spies a cluster of haze leaf, but closer inspection reveals that there is a story to it. Beneath the growth is the skeleton of a malformed creature. 3 skulls, one of which looks incomplete, 4 arms and a ribcage that looks like 2 partially fused together and converging at the base of the spine. There is more, but it's hard to see under the vines and leaves. Manuel tentatively steps closer, held back only by fear that inhaling the plant's pollen might overcome his higher faculties and drive him into a frenzy. But just as he's devising a way to retrieve the skeleton, yet another new thing steals his attention. He raises his hand and he gasps as he notices the pink dust flowing between his fingers. There is no breeze to carry it. It moves defying any reason, slithering past the expedition and deeper into the city, towards the largest tree in the valley. There must be more of that wonderful essence the good doctor distilled for us in that tree. But I'd like to take my time studying this place first. Of course, a larger research team should be put together to properly unveil all of the city's secrets. The guards standing behind the Duke fidget on their feet and glance at each other. He's talking to himself. Oh, I cannot resist. Some preliminary assessment and sample taking won't hurt. Let's see, where to start? While the Duke tries to make up his mind, Silverth grunts as he moves his head to look around. His gaze stops on the nearest soldier to him, just a few steps ahead of the beast he's been hauled onto. He sees the keys in his handcuffs hanging from his belt alongside a small bag. Earlier they confiscated his coin and put it in that bag. He needs to free himself and get it back as soon as possible. But not even he can hope to break free from these cuffs, and even if he could, he cannot fend off the guards with his injuries. But would that even be necessary? The lion is shaking in his boots, and the Duke is distracted trying to convince the other guards to take a sample from one of the writhing walls. This is his chance. Hey, you. The soldier jumps and points his spear at his nose. Besides being glad that he's so afraid, Silverth doesn't react. You are smart, aren't you? You already know that this isn't going to end well. Quickly, while they are distracted, free me. No, I... He looks towards the Duke but says nothing more. Good, he's thinking about it. Go any deeper and you won't come back. If you have family, you will never see them again. not that they will live long if the Dark God awakens. I can put a stop to this. You know I'm the only one who can. The lion grits his teeth, nervously checking that none of his fellow soldiers are listening or looking back at him. It takes him a few seconds, but slowly he begins reaching for his key. Silvereth lets out a sigh of relief. A sudden crunch followed by a scream makes Silvereth's fur stand on end. Both him and the lion turns towards the noise, and the latter's jaw goes slack. One of his fellow soldiers is standing centimeters away from a building, blood running down his arm and falling in droplets near a pickaxe by his feet. At first glance, they think that the thing coiled around his arm is a snake, but just a second later, they see that it's not even an animal. It looks more like stone. No, wood. The moment the lion had gotten closer to get a sample of the writhing wall, something that looked like a branch had shot out of it, piercing him through his armor and the palm of his hand. He had quickly tried to pull away, but the tendril then wrapped around his wrist, holding him closer before coiling itself up his arm. Each turn, each squeeze is accompanied by the sound of bones breaking and agonizing screams. Before the others can even understand what's happening, it shoots into his mouth, coming out of his nape with a squelch. The soldier goes limp, but what truly throws the soldiers and even Silvereth into terror is a realization that he's still twitching, he's still breathing, he's still looking at them with pleading eyes. One of his fellow lions is foolish or perhaps crazy enough to drop his lance and step forward as if he could be freed or saved. The snake pierces through his heart next, and then shoots towards another soldier and another. The Duke's eye don't show fear even for an instant, transfixed by the beauty of the creature skewering them one by one, even when his turn arrives. How does it sense us? How does it move and carry the weight of us so many men? How does it feed? These and many other questions run through his mind as blood gushes out of his wound. Manuel and the others are lifted off the ground, the now several meter long snake circling around them before lunging at their limp but still moving bodies. It shoots forward faster than the eye can follow, piercing them again and again. Silvereth is at a loss at first, but as the snake twists into knots and brings the bodies closer, he realizes what's happening. It's stitching them together, fusing them into something new. It's turned them into compost so that the eye may grow new life. Hurry! That shout tears the lion next to him and the few other survivors out of their shock. The soldier falls to his knees as his trembling hands retrieve the key to free Silvereth from his shackles. The others cut him free from the rope, hoisting him to the beast. However, as he slides off its back, he almost falls to the ground. Manuel had treated his wounds, but they're still too severe for him to stand. The lion drops the key as he reaches for his coin. Silvereth swipes it off his hand, just in time to incinerate another snake that has sneaked up behind him. We need to move, now! It's not only the snake, or the monster it's stitching together that threatens them, but the city itself as it awakens. The floor beneath them tremble, buildings in the distance crumble, and the massive branches they witnessed on their journey begin to stir. The lions want to run, but know that Silvereth is their only chance of survival. They help him up, and giving him a shoulder, slowly drag him with them. As much as their legs urge them to run, they stick together, uselessly pointing their spears at the awakening city. They flinch and yell at each tendril that extends towards them, and Silvereth turns left and right to incinerate each one before it can score a victim. Sweat rains from the dragon's forehead, from the heat of his own attacks, the panic at being surrounded, the exertion while his wounds are still so fresh. His injuries are making him slow, unfocused, and at the back of his mind he knows that the slightest distraction, even for a second, will spell out their doom. And yet each time he unleashes another inferno, his vision grows a little blurrier, his concentration wanes, and his grasp of the coin becomes clumsier. He doesn't know how much longer he can keep this up. His only hope is that the lions can take him to safety before his body fails him. But even though he must focus on protecting his reluctant allies, as his life depends on it, one question arises in his mind amidst all the fear and chaos. Why? Why are their surroundings coming to life like this? Is the eye so close to awakening that simply disturbing the wall with the pickaxe was enough to produce this response? Silvereth doubts it. He had expected something like this to happen if Manuel breached the ice chamber, the tree at the heart of the city, he assumed. Perhaps that assumption was incorrect, but his gut is still telling him otherwise. However, there is no time to dwell on the question. He must focus on the survival. I breathe in sharply, clutching my bedsheets tight as I sit up. My shoulders slump when I find myself in my room in Arwell's nest. My heart is hammering against my chest. Why am I so agitated? A bad dream? I bite my lips and focus, but I'm drawing a blank. If I was dreaming, I don't remember any of it. In any case, the rich aroma of Arwell stew begins seeping into my room, and my belly grumbles. As I get out of bed and start getting dressed, I notice that I don't feel rested at all. My legs ache and my eyelids feel so heavy. Maybe I slept in a bad position, or... Yes, an expedition just ended and the hospital is bursting with patients. Yes, I'm tired from standing up so much. There's so much work to do, so many people to treat. I hope that I'm not running late. I should hurry. After double-checking my belt bag, I leave the room. You pass the threshold into the hospital. A sweet yet stinging scent fills your nostrils. The receptionist waves his hand without raising an eye from his desk. Lying on the bed before you was a wolf with a mangled leg, a fracture that twisted the limb in an unnatural position. You put a vial on his lips, and with practiced perfection you set his body straight. For every illness you know the remedy God intended and how to make it. For every cut there is a type of stitch and you have practiced them all 1,000 times. But even back then, under your father's shadow in Oblin, your fingers already moved by themselves as you stitched your first cut. You cannot remember your first patient's face. The oldest ones felt special ones, but now they blur together. But you remember his expression, somewhere between surprise and relief. You turn back to your father, who observed with frowning eyebrows and hands on his waist. He nodded. Are you paying attention, Hector? Huh? Yes. You're so airheaded lately. He always said that. You wondered if he did it so often because there was something wrong with you, after all. The first time that you heard him say it was that one summer in Oblin. Before then you had only seen him a few times, when walking hand in hand with Aunt Nora. She would point at him and say with a smile, "There he is, that's your father." Sometimes he'd spare you a glance, sometimes you'd pass him by unnoticed. But once you became able to string sentences together with ease and follow instructions, he knocked on the door. Aunt Nora shouted and screamed at him, but by sunset he was dragging you by the hand to your new home. You remember sitting in a dark room, watching the brewer's flame flicker under a flask. The substance within was opaque, and it swayed ever so slightly. He was sitting next to you. All you remember is the outline of his coat in the dark, the shape of his muzzle and the flame reflected in his eyes. He glanced at you and pointed towards the now bubbling substance. You reached out, and the moment the tip of your fingers approached the hot glass, the tiniest spark was created with the space between. Up to that point, Father must have repeated that same moment hundreds of thousands of times. You had only watched him do it only a few dozen, so your elixirs weren't as good as his yet. But he'd make you watch, and then do it yourself again and again, until you touched the way that he did, until your hands were warm the way that his were, until you could heal or break the way that he did. You ask me where I come from. It all started when you began going to church. School wasn't good enough, he said. You required more specialized education. You spent much of the afternoon reading and copying texts with the priests. A child's handwriting was of no use to them, of course, but they allowed your stay because Father covered the cost for the ink and the paper. But one day you overheard the priests talking. They were comparing works, talking about which ones they were the most proud of. How odd it was to hear them talk with such passion about the ink that they made, their exceptional calligraphy flourishes, or the inventiveness of their illustrations. Thinking of it, you realized that you weren't proud of anything that you'd written. It wasn't because of a lack of skill, Had you become a scribe and continued doing this work for decades until you could copy and adorn books flawlessly, you wouldn't feel any less empty. You merely watched with your eyes, absorbed what was in front of you, and let your nerves transform the information into empty motion. There was no meaning to that movement, no emotion behind it. However, whenever you executed it perfectly, be it by enchanting elixirs or writing, the tension in your father's brow would dissipate. That was a sign that he wouldn't remind you of the pain his hands could inflict, that he loved you. And that was good enough. You should have been content, happy knowing that someone loved you. But a rotten impulse somehow latched to your chest and began eating away at it. An ache that intensified every time that you looked at the complete page of a manuscript, causing the hole in your chest to grow larger and larger over time. You could have, should have, waited it out. You had a feeling that it'd disappear over time. The more Father talked, the more he made you spend time with Grandpa, the more you understood that you'd had a very complicated life once you grew up. One that would leave little time and energy for the little problems, including this one. But you were young and naive, Hector. That afternoon, almost at sunset, the last remaining priest dismissed you as he went to the neighboring room to close the windows. Left alone with the writing implements, you saw a chance. You didn't think of the consequences. You grabbed some parchment and, not caring for the pieces of charcoal they gave you to practice, you stole a quill and a bottle of ink. You figured that they wouldn't notice. Instead of going back home, you shoved everything in the sack that you had used earlier that day to bring some apples, and then you hurried to the forest to bury it under a tree. Father chastised you for being late, but attributed to your slow wits, none the wiser to your crime. When you went into your room that night, you giggled. It wasn't joyous, but poisonous. You had outsmarted the most intelligent man that you knew, and even those fools back at the church. That said, finding a moment to go back to the tree was difficult. Father thoroughly managed your time to guarantee your education was coming along well. The brief moments when he was out of town to answer the call of a wealthy client was the best time for you to sneak out of home, sit down by the tree and write. The first time, you had no clue what to do. You considered making a list of all the smells that you knew of Oblon, but it sounded boring. Besides, Father had plenty of books that went in detail about smells. You wanted to create something more unique, but you had precious little time, and the longer that you stared at the empty page, the more you felt like a hand was squeezing at your heart. So in the end, you began writing about anything, whatever came to mind. You wrote about a little badger boy living with his kind aunt. Long ago, bad men had injured her, and she couldn't walk well, so her nephew had to hold her hand when they went outside and help her with her chores, but he didn't mind. You spent their afternoons together while she cooked dinner, always talking about the rain and snow, the bugs and the flowers, the little badger's friends and their adventures by the creek, all sorts of things. She was kind and gentle, and she never yelled around the little badger. Well, there was at one time, but she hadn't yelled at him. But the story made you sad and you started crying, so you wrote about something else. You had only ever heard of the big cities that existed beyond the humble Oblon. You imagined what it'd be like to be an aristocrat, to eat caramel apples and wear silky, fresh clothes every day. You enjoyed imagining the adventures of the Inquisition, of which you barely knew anything about except for the fact that they brandished swords and fire to fight demons. Speaking of demons, you had also no idea what those were actually supposed to look like. When you asked the priests, they just gave vague answers, such as that they came in many strange forms. All you could gather was that they didn't look like badgers, and probably also not like any of the other species in the Father's books. So you just fill the blanks yourself. Large monsters, standing twice the height of Father, with 6 arms and many, many heads. Long tails spanning the length of 2 adult badgers. Eventually you got bored of writing about the Inquisition, and your focus shifted to the demons. You passed many afternoons with your belly on the grass, just imagining all the different forms that they could take. You even ended up stealing some charcoal so that you could draw them, then change their designs if you weren't satisfied or had changed your mind. Soon you replaced the bag with a small box Aunt Nora gave you. She was curious at your sudden interest in it, but didn't question it. It kept its contents much safer, and you used it as a make-do desk. You had very limited time to play under the tree, but over time those few hours became days, then weeks. As time went on, you became more cunning in stealing from the church. You couldn't just steal another bottle of ink, they were bound to notice them going missing. Instead, once you ran out of ink, you washed the bottle in the river to get rid of the smell and then sneak it into the church. When the priest went to close the windows, you'd steal just a little from one of the filled bottles. That meant that you needed frequent refills, but this way they'd never notice your mischief. They also never noticed 1 or 2 pieces of parchment disappearing every once in a while. You doubted that they were keeping a close eye on the charcoal, not that they needed more of it often. You also grew more adventurous. While you never got along with grandfather, you did notice that he'd tire himself and go take a nap after getting in an argument. Whenever he was babysitting you, you'd rile him up so that he went to sleep and you could sneak out. You didn't ride for long out of fear of him waking up, and doing this always earned you another scolding from father, but you had already heard all the stories of his past and were none to them. What mattered was that once you were by yourself in your room, you went to bed with a smile. Thinking about the city, inquisitors, and demons made you even slower in your studies too. It ate through the attention that was meant for the elixirs and the books that he wanted you to read. Many times he punished you in consternation, or theorized that you had inherited that woman's intellect after all, but you didn't care. As long as you could write, you didn't care. But then one day, the seasons had passed, it grew colder by the day, Stowfather had left town, and you had a few days to truly dedicate yourself to writing. Although your eyes had been glued to the paper, your gaze jolted up upon hearing something that wasn't supposed to be there, the stomping of boots. Your nose caught a familiar smell. You stood in front of the fireplace. It was dark, the fire illuminating the contour of your legs as you looked down. There were repetitive sounds of paper being crumbled, followed by crackling of fire, as if the hungry fireplace was asking for more. You couldn't smell the stinging, addictive scent of burning wood, only iron. One day you'll understand, Hector. Nothing in this world is free. Every step that we take is a sacrifice. He overturned Aunt Nora's wooden box and let all of its contents slip into the fire, even the quill, the ink bottle, and the charcoal. Then, with a disappointed sigh, he threw the box too. Our lives are built on top of other people's sacrifices, their lives, their struggles. And as we move into the future, we must follow their footsteps. Your grandfather did it. I did it. I give much of my life to be where I am now. There are so many things that I wanted to do, but I didn't. All to remain on the good path. Your mother gave her life for you. The moment that you took your first breath, she took her last. I don't think that was meaningless. That was a lie. You already knew that her grave didn't exist because you had searched for it. For a long time you wondered, if this man was your father, then who was your mother? One day, a few months before, a doubt gripped you by the throat, the possibility that she died when you were too young to remember it. You had to go check, so you ran to the cemetery. At the very least, you didn't find anyone who died the day of your birth, or shortly after. So you knew that it was a lie, but you didn't question it, you just accepted it. In a few years you would repeat this lie to Cadgan, almost as if you had believed it. Because it was easier to accept than any other truth that you could imagine. And the moment that you accepted his words, you felt me, standing in front of you on the hungry fire. Father's words became fuzzy as you raised your head to look into my eyes, into the flames that they reflected. You took my features in, my face that was like yours, my hands that were as practiced and taken care of as yours, my bleeding nose. The only difference was in our eyes. Mine were just like father's, meanwhile yours were dark and empty. The life had been hollowed out of them. You stared at me in silence. Act 3, Chapter 6, Ruin of Us All. My legs burn, my jaw aches from tension, and my lungs feel about ready to give up. It was early in the morning when I split up from Celia, and while I can't tell the position of the sun right now, the sky has grown darker. Sunset must be an hour or two away at most. The constant cry of the bugs drown out even my heaving breath and threatens to bring forward a piercing headache. But as much as my body complains, I can't stop, not after what I saw when entering the valley. The thorn walls, masses of roots and spikes left behind to block the way to the shamans once used to free the valley, had been brought down. They told me everything that I needed to know. Hector, somehow, I have no idea how, let Silvereth pass. Then, either something happened to Silvereth, or the Duke managed to betray him. I cannot imagine an inquisitor like him would ever let anyone come in contact with the eye otherwise. So I can't stop running, no matter how much it burns. Rain too is silent, focused on what's in front of us, although I sense him focus in different spots of my vision every once in a while, probably looking for signs of the expedition, or anyone who might have run away from it. That is to say, for signs of Hector. We pass through the eerie exterior of the valley and dive into its twisted entrails. There's no time to behold the strange sight or the strange forms of life dwelling within it. Still, my heart begins beating faster once I process our surroundings. We already knew the eye's influence was leaking out of ancient Renai, but we hoped that what remained of our rituals would be enough to keep it at bay. And yet the leaf-burning festival and our other communal rituals have changed over the centuries, and in doing so, lost most of its power. The sigil that we placed in the amphitheater every year after the Great Lake Games works well, but looking at it all, I doubt even that would have been enough had this corruption reached the town. I hadn't realized how weak and pathetic our resistance to the eye had become. It fills my mouth with a bitter taste. I only hope putting the seal back in place can fix this, or at least stop the spread of this corruption. But my mind goes blank when I catch a glimpse of ancient Renai. All the distorted wildlife around us goes silent, and a shiver spreads through my entire body. The presence, the thing flowing through my veins and felt in my chest, lets out a cavernous growl. The giant tree releases a deep, rumbling creak. It's then that I notice that it looks almost like it's starting to tilt to the side. Is it growing? Or is something underground pushing it upwards, uprooting it in the process? I don't know what's happening to it, but it must have to do with the eye's awakening. With a huff, I continue running, but I don't make it far before something else stops me in my tracks. The moment that I see a band of lions farther down the slope, my hand leaps to the invisible sigil, but it's already too late. They are running away from the ancient city and have already caught sight of me. Most of them are missing their usual helmets, giving me a good view of their panicked faces. They are heaving just as much as I am, but out of fear rather than exhaustion. One of them has a trail of drool running down his face and can't keep his shaky hands away from his chest. But most importantly, two are helping the Inquisitor climb the slope. Out of everyone, Silvereth looks the worst. His clothes are in tatters, as if the mouth of his belly had jumped out to bite at something, and it's covered in blood-soaked bandages. Still, his eyes are as sharp as they were the day that he burned the haze leaf plaguing the amphitheater. It's only when my mind goes after that I finally register that they are covered in soot, reeking of bitter smoke. My eyes travel up to the city as it shifts and convulses. They had to fight their way out of there. Rain groans. Not only we haven't run into the person that we actually intended to find, but met the one that we truly would have rather not. Watch out. He has a coin in his hands. I'm tempted to just run for it. I'm so close to the city, I'd rather not risk getting incinerated right now. But I can't run in there blindly. I need to know what's happening. They were there. They can tell me what to expect. Perhaps it's because I took our fear back, but as of late, making choices has been torturous. Every decision feels like choosing between the noose or the stake. Rain, in contrast, sounds so clear and collected. I suppose it's a good sign that he hasn't attacked yet. I don't respond in any way, not wanting to repeat the mistake that I made with Celia as I approach him. Silvereth blinks slowly. A pointed claw taps the coin. I'm Cadgan. I'm with one of the priests. What happened? Where's the Duke? Where's... As I've brought out of the terror-induced trance of the mention of the priest, the lines all start speaking over each other. They mention living buildings, massive tendrils, snake-like branches that pierce their prey over and over. All I understand is that they barely escaped with their lives. They lost many men in the initial attack, and many more trying to get out of the city. Silence! Silence now! Silvereth's voice comes out as a deep, booming growl. The lines turn to him, knees bent and shoulders slouching, as if they were no more than small, scared beasts. Rain lets out a snarl next to my ear, apparently taking the animalistic sound as a challenge and responding in kind. Silvereth stands up, his posture wide and proud despite the wounds currently sapping away his strength. Took your time to show up, Avatar. Or do you prefer Shaman? Either way, I've been looking for you all over the place. He's not being coy, and if my experience with Kalia is anything to go by, I don't think that he'll appreciate me feigning ignorance. I only caught Celia's interest because she mistook me for another easy prey to add to her order, but Silvereth figured us out from the start. Having seen his memories, it's not so surprising in retrospect. We are kindred in a tragic sense. The first and only time until now that we locked eyes was back when he burned the haze leaf, standing in front of the amphitheater. He watched my head poke above the crowd. It feels like he's been on my trail ever since. Perhaps he saw a little of himself in me, considering that he too is oversized, even for a dragon, and looking into my history only strengthened his belief. But if feigning ignorance shall be of no use, then in what may be the last day of my life, I will still allow myself one thing: pride. For no reason other than it being deserved. Call me by what I am, Inquisitor. I am a shaman of Renai. Avatar is not a word taught by my parent and teacher. Tell me now, is what they are saying true? Yes, the city has very much come to life. It captured the Duke and most of his men. We thought them dead, but then it began stitching them together into... something. An abomination. His voice shakes as the weight of the eye's capacities fall on him. They are still alive in there. We feel it. Somewhere in that ancient city, even now the Duke drags his men to ruin unimaginable. Though I feel no kindness to that fiend, I find pity towards the fools that he brought down with him. I hope none of them were friends with Ricardo. Then, they didn't make it to the ice chamber? No. Strange, isn't it? I close my eyes and try to picture what's going on, but Rain is quick to bring me out of it. And Hector? I don't know. He ran off somewhere when these gentlemen betrayed me and ran their spears through my back. One of the lions approaches, hands trembling and fidgeting. He did run towards the city, but there's no way that he survived, right? It'd be unlikely, yes. There is a but. In his eyes as he looks at me, my lips part ever so slightly as I lower my gaze. Could Hector have reached the eye, all on his own? It's hard to imagine, but if Manuel and his men didn't, then he's the only one left. But why? Even if he reached the city alive, it's hard to imagine any sane man would take refuge in that massive, infected tree. Once again, the pieces of the board move on their own, entering a state of utter disarray, and yet, as I watch them slide all over the place, it feels as though something is missing. Or maybe I am the one that is missing something. I turn to Rain, expecting to find him sad and confused, but it looks as though he's deep in thought. Is he seeing something that I am not? Silvereth's booming voice pulls me back to reality. Tell me, are you here to stop the eye? You made a very unwise decision by bringing the Duke and his men here, Inquisitor. I am here to clean up the mess that you made. Silvereth seems to be beyond questioning my intentions by now. He knows he can't fix this by himself, and doing nothing will only guarantee our doom. He'd be a fool to turn down any help, even if he has to bite down doubts and suspicions to accept him. And even if things don't go according to plan, I do hope that he has realized that all I wanted was for the Duke to let the valley be. Despite my gloating, I don't know how to fix this either. The city itself is attacking intruders, and now there may be a monster fused from the Duke and his men, roaming its streets. How are we going to reach the tree? If Silvereth was in good health, and if I thought that it'd help, we could do a suicide charge to try and reach the ice chamber before everything kills us. We need to place one of the statues in there to repair the seal. But it's obvious that won't be possible, not like this. I doubt even the invisibility spell can help us. I'd need to be channeling the eye's essence, which I suspect would give away my position. If we're gonna do this, then we need safe passage into the city. How are we gonna deal with those tendrils, and what became of the Duke on top of that? The abomination will be a challenge, but the tendrils shouldn't be an issue. Now that you've appeared, we have a fighting chance. What? I don't even have my axe with me. Axe? Well, I don't have fire magic like you, so what else would I use? He waves a hand in my direction. You're an avatar, a shaman, or do you not understand what this entails? He opens a hand upwards, and as if feeling water running through his fingers, he brings it up. Then he glances at the mouth of his belly, now exposed from his clothes being in tatters. As you can see, we're not so different. We may hail from different parts of the world, but we're both avatars. Before I joined the Inquisition, when I was still in the clutches of my dark god, its domain would react to me, to my will. I would write bottled messages which would, without fail, travel incredible distance to reach faraway shores, as I wished them to. His expression darkens then, his gaze traveling down and remaining there, this time. When I wished for company against all odds, a ship was led astray just so that its passengers would reach me. Even animals, even the people who gave their full devotion to my god. All bent to my will. It started with the people of his cult obeying his every whim as part of their attempt at grooming him into being a perfect avatar. But as he grew up, that certainly became something more. The world itself twisted to make Silvereth's wishes come true. So he's saying that we should have the same power. A god isn't so individual. It's something much grander and harder to grasp. Even if it seems intangible and invisible, its presence is felt everywhere within its domain. And once you notice it, you will start seeing it everywhere. That which once escaped you becomes evident, and the intangible real. Perhaps that is what happened to Silvereth. He was conditioned to accept its dark god's presence, its power, until he began wielding it before he could understand it. Having seen his own story with our own eyes, I know he did indeed gain some strange power over that island and everything the Emerald Waters touched. But as of for us, I've never been able to do such a thing. Silvereth lowers his hand to rest the side of his chin on his knuckles. Just taking a glance at this city, I know your ancestors bent this land to their will. The way that they weaved stone and bark into one is just a gentler application of the mutations that you can see all over the valley. They took things that already existed and mixed them into something new. They controlled the elements. Which means that the same should be possible for you two. Well, there is one thing. It's small and inconsequential. I never thought anything of it, but come to think of it, people say that Renai's forests are dangerous, that it's always looking for the chance to claw at you or make you trip on something that wasn't there before. But I've never experienced that. I thought nature simply favored me, that it chose to let me roam free because I am its priest. But maybe the forest was reflecting my desire to keep people as far away from the valley as possible. I was thinking of the valley actually. You know, I think that we were being pretty smart controlling the haze leaf patches with that earth helper, but every once in a while there'd be this moving pit in the perfect spot to make the expedition go the way that we wanted, or bulgers in the convenient places to roll them or drop them on their carriages. Now I wonder if those really were coincidences. I wonder if we even needed that Earth helper after all. I think I might be able to do what you're asking. Good, then we may yet stand a chance. How odd. I never thought an inquisitor would encourage me to use these unnatural powers. That is a way of nature, isn't it? There is no better way to kill your enemy than turning it against itself. I scratch my chin and look back at the surviving guards. Though they have taken a few steps back, I catch their ears swivel towards us. They were listening the whole time, these lions. By God, is it foolish of me to hope that if we succeed and there is a tomorrow, that these men will testify in defense of Renai? Silvereth seems none the wiser to their eavesdropping. He pats the grass right in front of him. After a moment, I realize that he wants me to sit. I do step a bit closer, but I remain standing. Silvereth shrugs. Now, assuming you can get the city to not kill us, that still leaves the problem of the monster. Let's come up with a plan. By the time that we start descending into the city, Silvereth has recovered enough of his strength to stand on his own. I don't really want to lend him my shoulder, so I'm glad that he doesn't ask me for it. The lions weren't willing to come with us, shivering and almost at tears at the mere thought of returning to the city, but even if they did, it would have been a burden. Instead, I told them to make their way to town, that by now the townspeople should be making their way into the valley as well. They'd be safer with them. Silvereth raised an eyebrow when he heard me say that, but didn't press the issue beyond confirming that the townspeople would play a necessary role in mending the seal. The descent becomes eerily quiet as we leave behind the cacophony of the valley. Silvereth isn't being his usual chatty self either. Only Rain's voice fills the silence as we descend the serpentine trail. I wonder what's going to happen to Renai after this. For now, it sounds enough that I can afford concentrating enough on his voice to respond. Are you asking because of Silvereth? Kind of. I didn't like that look when he learned the villagers are coming here. I don't know if he's planning to do something about it, or if he's worried that someone else will. Celia had a similar look. But that's not all. I mean, if everyone learns about what is here, about the Eye, do you think that there is a chance that it'd be like an ancient Renai again? Knowing about shamans, do you think that they could accept me, us? My chest feels tighter upon hearing the loneliness in Rain's voice. I guess it doesn't matter if they do or do not, but I think that they would. It doesn't mean much coming from me, and I know it. Between the two of us, I always ended up taking the side of the townspeople. But hearing this still makes me smile, one that still feels all too bitter knowing it's too late. There will be a place for you after all this is over. I'm sure of it. Now you're just trying to make me feel better. I can't deny that. I wonder if Hector would be sad or happy if I lived in this version of Renai, where there is a place for me. Why do you ask? I keep thinking about why he helped Silvereth, and the only reason that I can think of is his hometown. It feels as though he chose Oblon over us. And it feels bad. I'm wondering if he'd also feel bad if we chose Renai over him. I see. Silvereth was right there, but we decided against asking him how he dragged Hector into this. Neither of us wanted to have such a delicate conversation with him. We'd rather ask Hector himself. I don't understand him. His dad was a piece of shit who cared more about the town than his own son. Oblon must be full of bad memories for Hector, and it's not like he has to go back. But still, something anchors him to it, and I don't know what it is. He did mention that seeing Oblon decline was like seeing his father die all over again. Guilt can be a powerful emotion. And yet, he so easily begged me to strip him of everything he is. Right, the night that he accepted the deal. Back then, Rain didn't let it show too much, but he was surprised when Hector asked him to take his soul. Once he retreated into the night and returned to our shack, once the excitement died down, I remembered him sulking out in the corner of my eye. Sitting looking away from me, his ears low against his head. I understood that he was worried about Hector, but I was more concerned about reaching a compromise so that he wouldn't reveal more of the truth to him. After all, Rain revealing himself had already been a huge deviation from the plan. I just wanted him to promise me not to reveal too much, to agree on what to answer in case Hector asked about the demons or the Eye Valley. I was trying to push Hector away. We even roped Iranin into showing him some half-truths, a glimpse of the answers, so that he'd be satisfied, so that he wouldn't go digging for more on his own. A foolish effort. However, thinking about this now, only one thing makes sense to me. Maybe Oblong isn't that important to Hector. Nonsense. We were just talking about how he chose it over us. That would mean that we're worth less than dirt to him, and I refuse to believe that. That's not what I meant. I scratched my head, unsure of how to word the half-formed thought in my head. Despite his protests, Rain crosses his arms and looks away, as he often does when deep in thought. Does he think that I'm onto something after all? Just like before, he's not telling me what's on his mind, nor trying to give me glimpses. But before I can dwell on it, Silvereth's voice brings me out of our conversation. We're here. We stop once we are close enough to see the first few buildings. It takes me a few moments to notice the white snakes camouflaged against the walls. They are lying low, waiting for more prey to walk into their reach. Silvereth clears his throat. Well, go ahead. Give it a try. First, I chant under my breath as I feel the eye's essence manifesting inside my veins. The snakes twitch and they slither around the calcified walls until their sharp ended points in my direction. So they can sense the spell, but why? I take in the sight of the grand street in front of me before my eyes move to the artery-like growths of Hazeleaf. I've never witnessed a growth so saturated with corruption, and yet they don't seem to emit the frenzy-inducing pollen. Instead, they pulse, carrying something within them. It's not the Dark God's essence, despite its color, but it's close. Could it be blood? I close my eyes and focus. It's faint, but something is reaching us from deep underground. It follows the same rhythm as a pulse running through the Hazeleaf, a heartbeat. The tendrils react to my channeling right now, or to be precise, to the moment that I begin purifying the eye's essence. As if they felt it, should I assume that they possess nerves? Or at least something similar? Bone, flesh, and nerves. Then those writhing walls covering some of the buildings may be an attempt at skin. Whatever the case, the city is not only alive, but its connection to the eye is so powerful that it reacts to its essence being purified. The entire place has become like an extension of the Dark God. A Dark God surprisingly similar to us, considering how closely its body resembles ours, or at least this part of it does. So the invisibility spell will be useless after all. Silvereth sighs when I stop chanting and the magic dissipates. Shame. That would have made everything much easier. I'm trying your method next. I take a deep breath and look at my hand. In the past, Silvereth's control over his surroundings seemed to be like a reflex. It was something that he did automatically. But there had been moments of him being purposeful, such as him getting the island's ants to devour each other. I should just not think too much about it, pretend like it's moving a finger, or like breathing. Holding my hand out, I close it, imagining the tendrils moving alongside it. Nothing happens. Rain is right. We were probably influencing the valley already, so I just need to do it intentionally. Everything here has the ice essence running through it. It is a single massive organism held together by something invisible. But I've seen that invisible membrane already. I've touched it. Remember, gods are everywhere. It's just a matter of seeing them. It's probably not actually a membrane in this case. I perceived it as a membrane because I was looking within myself, but also me and Rain share a much smaller body compared to this living city. Something else binds it together. But look around at those haze leaf tendrils, for instance. We already know what the force separating, yet binding the city together, should look like. I close my eyes to find myself in the landscape of my mind. Beyond my hand, I can barely see it. Purple threads floating in the void. They are so faint that I need to strain my sight to sense them. But when I do, my hands creep towards it, and softly, as if to not lose concentration, I pluck the strings. I know the tendril that I touched must have moved, considering Silvereth gasps and takes a step forward. Is it working? I think so. Can you keep it from moving? Furrowing my eyebrows, I strike the string with my claws, but all I do is push it one way and the other. It's not enough. It's then that I feel Rain's hand on my shoulder. He takes my hand and guides it away from it, and to somewhere under us in the mindscape, below the earth. We follow the heartbeats down and down, searching for the source of it all. I'm pulled into the black earth, surrounded by an endless maze of purple threads. The deeper that I go, the more that I start to see that they are tendrils pumping fluid towards the surface, and at the bottom of the abyss, which we are quickly approaching, rests an all-consuming dark sun. But it's alive. It perceived me. It shifts ever so slightly to follow me as I fall, and terror sets in as the instinctual fear of being hunted is triggered. We want to look away, but we can't. The moment that we avert our gaze, it will leap and consume us. My shoulders fall and rise with more intensity, until I notice that it's not just from panic. I can't breathe. It feels as though I'm buried deep within the earth, the pressure around me compressing my ribcage, bones cracking to the point that they're about to snap. I open my eyes with a gasp. Silvereth looks at me, perplexed. I saw the eye. At least I think that's what it was. Were you able to do something to it? No, it was too much. I turn from him back to the city, and my eyelids grow narrow when I notice a purple glint running along the center of the tendrils. No, it's not just the tendrils. Thin purple threads populate the walls that they emerge from, connecting them to the soil and things resting deep below. The city's entire circulatory system has been laid bare to me. With a shake of my head, the vision grows blurry and fades away slightly. What is this? I hope that we could reach the eye and do something to it, so as to stop the tendrils for good, but that was too optimistic. We're still just shamans. We can't oppose our patron god so directly. But the vision of its essence remains. Perhaps this will grant us passage. Rain is the one who extends his hand this time, putting one of the tendrils between his fingers and shaking it around before trying it into a knot. Silvereth raises an eyebrow. What are you doing? Experimenting. Give me a moment. I close my eyes. Rain, do you think that you'd be able to keep us safe? I don't think that I'll be able to walk and do it at the same time. Of course. There's two of us for a reason. Besides, now that I've witnessed the eye, this is pretty easy. Left and right, up and down, up and down. It's impressive how quickly he's acclimating to this. I can't stop the tendrils completely, but as long as you stay near me, it should be safe. I can work with that. Do you think that you'd be able to protect me while I'm out of sight? I bring a hand to my chin to pretend to be deep in thought as I glance at Rain. He nods. Yes. That's better than I expected. I'll be near you but out of sight. I'm in a rather delicate state, so I'll need to catch the monster off guard to slay it. If he can even slay it. None of us is certain it's possible, but we can only try. Considering the city creating a monster by binding Manuel together with his men, who he ruled with influence and fear. The monster created during the Eye's first awakening is said to have been bound, using the wolf's devotion towards a dark god. This one most likely carries all of Manuel's madness, and then some more. I'm not sure what to expect, but if I know one thing for sure, it'll do everything in its power to prevent us from sealing away the Eye. Very well, let's begin. I keep my eyes open as I sneak through the city's desolate streets, fascinated and watchful for any potential danger in equal measure. Walking amongst these towering buildings for the first time in many years, I feel small. They sort of resemble the ones in the ruins just outside the valley, but bigger, adorned with petrified roots and what I assume are flowers that turned into haze leaf. It's hard to swallow that my ancestors used to dwell somewhere so grand. It reminds me of a little of how Arwell described his own hometown. And yet, it's hard to imagine anyone ever lived here. Everywhere I look, I find evidence of the ice touch, and all I have for company are the tentacles occasionally slithering around me, and the heartbeat that grows ever clearer with every step closer to the tree. I can't sense any threat, other than occasionally stepping around the remnants of shattered glass cubes. Nothing impedes me from walking towards the center of the city. Part of that is rain keeping me safe, but I would have expected to run into whatever became of Manuel by now. Could it be that they did not survive whatever the eye did to them after all? That hope doesn't last long as I reach the blood-stained section of the street, with spears, helmets, tattered fabric, and scattered armor strewn all over the place. Despite all signs of chaos, there is no lying or beast corpse in sight. We're getting rather close by the tree by now. I can see its roots from here, bulging out of the ground. I'm crossing the next intersection when Rain yells, "Behind you!" My heart stops at the sudden, rhythmic thumping behind me. I turn around and am greeted by a stray void glancing at me from the empty sockets of a massive lion skull. How? It had been so fast despite it standing more than twice my height, and the length of its spindly body spanning much more than that. It would have reminded me of a snake jumping at its prey, if not for the countless arms spanning its body. My gaze is frozen in the peeled skull until I notice movement on the other side of its face. Something is growing out of where the other eye socket should be, squirming. A chaotic noise rose out of it. At first it sounds like a deep yet raspy gargle, but soon I begin picking out words. A wolf. The peacekeeper. The one with the blue pauldrons. What's he doing here? How did he get here? Many more faces grow from the right side of the monster's face. Countless mouths, noses, and eyes squirm, as if fighting for space, spewing overlapping streams of questions, and the voices of the lions melded into its monstrosity. But there is an undercurrent to their voices. Under every sentence there is another voice, one that I immediately recognize, and yet I shouldn't be hearing. Even Rain tenses up, and for a moment I think that I see the tendrils in the buildings nearby twitch from him losing his grip on them for a moment. Leopoldino? It can't actually be him, but they are being made to imitate his voice. Suddenly there's an even deeper gargle. The creature grinds its teeth, and one loud yet collected voice booms out. The peacekeeper. It seems the needles aren't attacking him. Fascinating. Could it be because he is a wolf? This place must only welcome his kind. The deformed faces gasp in amazement, spewing monotonous words of praise at Manuel's conclusion. It takes a breath as it inches closer, and I step back, frowning at it in an attempt to steel my nerves. A disgustingly sweet stench hits me as the monster huffs. The mutt wanted to keep me out of the valley, always half-assing its search for the demon, thinking that I did not notice. And now it must be here to stop me. No matter, my men will deal with it. Step back, wolf. Hands where I can see them. Your Grace, we await your orders. His men? The ones currently fused with him? Manuel's personality survived the fusion, but he isn't aware of what happened to him. But running into the city by itself, what a foolish idea. It may be larger than the other wolves, but surely it didn't expect to overcome my soldiers. Even wild animals can be cunning when it comes to self-preservation. It couldn't expect to survive on its own. Which means... There is a wet sound as the monster's countless eyes look around us. then all converge on Silvereth's direction. A blinding light swallows the creature, followed by roaring gusts of searing wind and a stench of burning flesh. The monster releases something between a roar and a whine as it protects its face with its arms. I step back to avoid the fire and make sense of the situation. Silvereth had snuck behind the creature and gone in position to incinerate its head with a single decisive strike, but he was a second too late, and he's now struggling to burn through the monster's arms and tail. His scales glisten from the layer of sweat covering him. His fingers struggle to hold the searing coin, and for a moment it looks as though he's about to fall to his knees. There is no way. We won't make it. Caddy, let me out. Rain takes my hand and I feel a pit in my stomach as I fall under. I open and close my fists as I raise them high, then I hold them close for a moment, watching the sewing needles around us beginning to stir. Cadgan is trying to hold them back, but he learns much slower than me when it comes to stuff like this. Still, this is perfect. I want them to move right now. I point with my left hand at Manuel. A needle shoots out from a nearby wall and coils itself around one of the arms he's currently using as a shield. I raise one more finger and a needle pierces his bicep, tearing a whine out of him. Utterly confused, Silvereth spares a glance my way, and his expression only grows more shocked before he returns his attention to the foe before him. The moment that I throw my left hand upwards, the needle tense and pull Manuel's grotesque form towards Silvereth, throwing him headfirst into the fire. Shrieks and thumps fill the air as his form struggles. Not even a monster like him can survive a full blast of the Inquisitor's fire magic straight in the face. But unfortunately, Silvereth has already wasted most of this blast. The flames he's spewing are still fierce, but it's nothing compared to the explosion from a few seconds ago. Manuel is starting to get up. I can try to restrain him, but with the flames growing weaker still, it's evident that we won't murder him this way. Clicking my tongue, I raise one more finger. What the? I giggle as a needle coils itself around the Inquisitor's arm and chest and drags him in my direction. What the hell do you think you're doing, you? His eyebrows furrow, not completely certain what he's looking at. Manuel's already at his arms, and sprinting towards us. I drop Silvereth and drive the needle through the monster, tugging him to the side and driving him into a nearby building. A tower breaks and rubble rains upon him. We can only see his tail writhing as he tries to get back onto his countless arms. Your feeble flames will accomplish nothing, Avatar. Back off. I can see all the questions forming in his eyes, but he wisely decides against distracting me and crawls behind our back. Rain, what are you doing? If we can't burn him, then I will just sew him to death. The moment Manuel rears his head, I drive my arm forward and more needles fall upon him. I finally strike with my right hand, piercing him again, and then I spread my arms to pull him in opposite directions. Claws, slash, gouge. So pierce and kill and kill and kill and kill. I don't know if it's the power trip or the thought of finally killing one with Leopoldino's blood that has me giggling. Back when I felt fear, no matter how much I wanted to do it, the idea of murder made me apprehensive. I had so many chances to. Any of those nights that we broke into the manor to torment him, snapping his neck would have been so easy. Or I could have easily gagged him with his bedsheet as he struggled to repay him for the pain his family caused me in these excruciating 11 years. But now, I don't know what was stopping me. We should have done this from the start. I'm sure Caddy thought about it too. But now that the Duke's like this, it's even easier. Pulled apart by the strings, Manuel points the starry void of his skull at us. I know you. Oh? You're the devil. You're the one who got in the way of my expedition. Rain, this won't... That's right. You should have heeded my warnings. Now look what has become of you. Interesting. The Peacekeeper became a devil. Are you one of my father's subjects? He said that they were all failures, even the one who lived, but... My smile falls, but I don't grace him with a response. I pull the threads farther apart, but he just grabs them and begins pulling them out. I wonder, how many more times do I need to stab him to kill him? A few dozen more? Hundreds? Thousands? Can I even kill him before the eye fully awakens? I glance at Caddy, and the lack of confidence in his expression makes my heart sink. Manuel keeps pulling himself free, little by little. His monstrous strength overpowers the needles with the same ease one pushes a thin branch aside. But maybe the fool didn't comprehend what he discovered when he told me of the substance that he found deep in the valley, or the subject's memories mingling. I knew that he touched upon something special. The experiment proved that there was something invisible that connected all the subjects, something that they shared moments before their death. I knew from that moment that he stumbled upon uncharted territory, but he was too obsessed with his little farmer toys to see it. Pathetic, to think that he was such a short-sighted man, to think that I am the offshoot of such a small-minded animal. There is something different about him now. There is a curiosity in his voice that makes my stomach turn. If he still had his eye, I know that he'd have that same look as the doctors that examined us. Rain, let me. Do you have a plan? He nods, and I offer him my hand. Manuel stops in his tracks when, with a purple glow, our body changes back to Cadgan. With cold eyes, he raises a hand towards Manuel and speaks. I can show it to you. The 5th layer. Bones rattle as Manuel tilts his head. You're right. We are one of your father's subjects. I found the 5th layer because of his experiment, and I can reveal it to you. Ha 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 ha. It thinks that it could comprehend the layers. The watchdog thinks that it can read, let alone finish Karina's work. But Caddy stands his ground. It separates and connects the mind. Thoughts, feelings, and memories, knowledge. All that and much more has its flow permitted or prohibited by it. It is where the illness of the mind, which no elixir or surgery can treat, begin. Manuel's face loses its smile, and all voices but his die down. It stares at me, and for once in my life, I feel that his rotten man looks us in the eye. A bold claim for a mutt. Why would you offer this now, after opposing me? Caddy is silent for a moment, but he's not at a loss of words or thinking. Instead, I can tell that he's taking in Manuel's body in its full grotesque splendor. The exposed skull, the faces gaping like fish on one side of his face, the countless arms and his long body, which looks incomplete rather than resembling a snake. Caddy smiles faintly as twisted truths start rolling off his tongue. I've changed my mind. A man of your stature deserves to witness it. You deserve to understand everything. I don't understand what he would gain by doing this, but I trust Caddy enough to remain silent as he raises his hand towards Manuel. I see. You are correct, yes. Now, let us see if you can substantiate your claims. There is a strange mix of emotions in those last words. Indignation at this so-called mutt for suggesting that he has what the Duke has been coveting all this time. But also he is curious, just enough to go along with this. Our eyes close, and after a moment we plunge into the warm recesses of our mind. In the dream we see each other. Silvereth is nowhere to be seen. He shares no connection to the eye, after all. We see the tangle of veins originating from the eye, and we see Manuel's body. It looks different here. Rather than a monster, it looks more like a cocoon. Countless threads form purple membranes, binding him and his soldiers together. I clench my teeth at the sight of their sleeping faces. They look so peaceful, whispering stray thoughts from their dreams. Father, I thought you were gone. Take me back home to the old farm, please, to those blessed summers. Raimunda, it's like you haven't aged a day. Look at me. I've become fat, ugly, and disgraced since you. Still, you would give an old man like me another chance? Cadgan stops and gazes at their faces, as much to find Manuel as trying to capture them in our memory. No more nobles and their whims. No more guard duty. Eowyn, I want to stay in Renai and marry you at last. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there when our son grew up, but do you think that he would forgive me? Eowyn is a Renanian name, a wolfish name. We don't have much time, Caddy. Caddy floats forward, looking over the cocoon, and when he finds Manuel's body poking out of it, he approaches it. He places a fingertip in front of his working eyelid and nudges it open. What? Can you see? He can, and the sight has him screaming. Manuel tries to pull himself free, only to find himself firmly stuck as the flesh in his arms and back is fused with the membranes connecting him to the soldiers. Get me out of here! What happened to me? Why? What do you mean? This is it, Manuel. This thread is the 5th layer. I promised you that I'd show it. Don't you remember? It's me, Cadgan, the peacekeeper, the mutt, the subject your father experimented on. I discovered reason myself. I suppose that makes me the one who finished Karina's work. I know the 5th layer looks underwhelming like this. It's just some string right now, but you have no idea what miracles you can do with it. Why, I was even able to change my body into that of a demon. No. It can't be. This cannot be. How did I even get here? I suppose you don't remember, but the eye sewed you together. If you want to undo it, all you have to do is cut the thread. Cadgan points towards the bright purple membranes. His next words were ice cold. It looks wrong. It's supposed to surround you rather than bind you. It must be because of what the eye did. I hear your skill with the scalpel is unparalleled. Indeed it is. As if I'll let these parasites cling to my body. There is a strange fleshy sound as Manuel breaks out his good arm. I can fix this. There is nothing that can't be set right again. With enough ingenuity. The right instruments. The correct method. Despite his words, he looks more like a wild animal fighting for his life. He sinks his claws on the membranes, binding him, cutting them piece by piece. His face twists into horror upon noticing the beasts buried inside the pile of corpses, but it only makes him more frantic. Red starts filling the ocean, but it stops a few centimeters shy from Cadgan. His own invisible barrier keeps the color at bay. There is nothing to do but watch as it keeps filling Manuel's side of the world until it covers everything but his most violent swipes and flailing, until a solid wall of red is all that remains. We open our eyes. Nothing remains. Well, that's not strictly true, but it's still the first thought that comes to mind upon witnessing the pile of meat in front of us. There's no trace of the skull, the arms, the countless faces, nothing. Just meat. A pile of it taller than even myself. It doesn't particularly look like muscle nor any organ that I know. I suppose once flesh loses all meaning, all definition, when reason is torn to shreds, this is what is left behind. All that seems noteworthy is the purple of the eye's essence seeping between the red chunks. Silverth stands behind us, horrified and panicked. What did you do? I had a chat with Manuel. I showed him what he was looking for, but he didn't seem too pleased with it. But that is nothing to calm Silverth's nerves. I reckon that no power his dark god provided him was as messy as what he just witnessed. And with that, a dark thought crosses my mind. I want you to commit this to memory, Inquisitor. The 5th layer is a membrane that gives shape to one's mind, and it can... Oh, to hell with it. It's not like anyone will be able to make sense of it. If there is still a world tomorrow, people will be fine waiting a few more thousand years for this. Is the path clear, Inquisitor? Yes, shaman. There's still the matter of bringing the statue here. I could wait for Iranin and the others to arrive and clear the way for them, but I'd rather proceed into the ice chamber now. The tree creaks, shaking the city and making us stumble. Something is happening in the chamber, and it would be unwise to wait the hours that it might take Iranin to get here before dealing with it. Not to mention that I have a feeling that's where I'll find Hector. My ears perk up at a heavy thud behind me. Silverhead's on his knees. Now that I take a good look at him, I notice his wounds have reopened. The fingers in his hands look raw, like the heat of a spell ate through the scales. Can you walk? He lets out a labored breath and shakes his head. We can't leave him here, but dragging him back to the valley sounds like an equally dangerous idea. Caddy, watching the Duke in that dream gave me an idea. He points in the direction of the two tendrils emerging from a distant building. From the odd way that they are facing upwards, Rain must be instructing them to move. They turn to face each other and then get closer until they are touching. Then their tips phase into each other. It's odd. They aren't even piercing into each other, almost as if they were incorporeal. Then they stop, and there is an odd noise as they twitch before relaxing and falling into the shape of a downward arc. Did you fuse them? This way we get rid of the pointy sharp part, and they can't move anymore. Ingenious, huh? Did you notice none of them come out of the floor or the smooth buildings? They seem to be an organ that grows out of those weird fleshy ones. If I fuse them like this, Silverearth will be safe even without us around. Oh, my little brother is so prodigious. He never fails to surprise me. Can you do that to all the tendrils between the tree and the entrance? Huh? Why? Well, we don't know how long we'll be in the ice chamber. I'm afraid if they arrive before that we get out, they'll get massacred. Shit, good point. What would I do without you, Caddy? Silverearth, I figured a way to deal with the tendrils, so I'll do that now. Get some rest. Don't you mean we figured? I shrug at him. I start walking back the way that we came. By the time that we make it back to the pile of meat, he has regained enough strength to follow us as we slowly make our way to the tree. A purple ring of water, crossed by 3 sturdy bridges, spread evenly across its circumference, separates the tree from the rest of the city. As I feared, the roots have begun bulging out of the earth, and the intricate pale door into its insides now rests several meters above the ground. It looks climbable, though. Here is where we part ways. I must stop whatever is happening in the ice chamber. Just as I move to begin climbing the roots, Silverearth walks in front of me to stop me. Wait. You know what's waiting in there, don't you? I have an idea. It's the badger. At least, that's the only thing that I can think of. He was able to extract the Dark God's essence using just some haze leaf. He knew about those thorn walls somehow. Odd, considering that we never told him. I had a suspicion that he might be special. Special? How? Are you implying Hector is tied to the eye somehow? That's impossible. No. But neither were you, nor most avatars. He looks down at his ballymaw. I'm a special case. Are you implying that Hector has become an avatar? Not necessarily. All I'm saying is that he resonates with this place. Something about the eye pulls him closer. At first I thought that it was just a truth poison fool, like the Duke, someone who couldn't stop looking for answers where he shouldn't, doomed to fall into the Dark God's clutches if given the chance. But the more that I watched him, the more this pit grew in my stomach. By the time that he opened the first gate, I had a feeling that he was something more dangerous. I was keeping a close eye on him because the possibility worried me, but then the Duke attacked, and we were forced apart. And he was spirited away into the ice chamber. Invited into it even. What Silverearth is saying is reasonable. More often than not, people don't deliberately try to touch a Dark God. Rather, it's the right combination of circumstances that makes that contact take place. But thinking of it that way, the more that I feel that I don't know Hector, I can't see what it is that supposedly gives him such an affinity towards the eye. It doesn't seem like Silvereth has any concrete idea either, but it bothers me that I failed to even consider this. I promised to protect Hector, not realizing how big of a danger he was to himself and all of us. Rain is just crossing his arms, rather impatiently waiting for this conversation to end. Curious. I understand. So, what's your point? When you're in there, it's possible that you need to pull him down. If it comes to that, please make the right choice. I've already made my choice. I know who will die today. Is that right? He steps aside and just watches as I begin making my way up the door into the Eye's chamber. Where his fate, Hector's fate, Renai's fate, all of them will be decided. Not mine. Mine's already set in stone. Yes, I've decided. I'm sorry, Caddy, but I don't know if I'll be able to help you. It all depends on what we find down there. But if I'm right, if it is what I suspect, then I'd rather plunge this world into oblivion than let you make this sacrifice. Let us step into the darkest pit of the Eye Valley then, outside of nature, into a realm of truth. Let us cast everything away until all that remains is your precious truth, dear brother. I suspect that both of them would rather kill each other. Well, not kill each other, but kill themselves in order to save the other as well as Hector. I suspect that Cadgan is fully willing to allow himself to die if it were to save Hector, but also Rain doesn't want either of them to die. So he's more willing to allow, like he said, willing to allow the world to fall to ruin if it means that nobody dies. That everyone is okay, but like technically nobody's gonna be okay if the world falls into ruin. I mean, we could end up having like a little section where Silvereth is like, yeah, I didn't fully believe that you guys would make the right choice, so I'm here to make the choice for you guys, or to make the sacrifice for you guys, because like I'm already dying, so like it really doesn't matter. The thought of Hector becoming an avatar for the Dark God does kind of make sense too, because he's as you saw in the previous chapter, or yeah, it's a chapter, right? Hector was being influenced by something, and I don't really recall if it was Hector himself. Actually, could I see it here? Let me check real quick. This one. Right here you see something else that looks like Hector, drawing him in, and probably it's what drawed him into the where the Eye sleeps. The chamber, the main chamber of the Eye, and it looks like a demon. It kind of looks like what Cadgan would look like. Not Cadgan, what Run Sky kind of looks like, you know? All demon-like. And it's sort of not possessing him, but sort of like enthralling him, or whatever you want to call it. So perhaps that is what Hector would look like as the Avatar. Who knows? And we go back. But yeah, so at least Manuel is dead. Some of the lions survived. I like lions. I have a lion Sona. I kind of wonder how the rest of the Renai is doing right now. If they're going to be able to... Actually, one thing that reminded me about the statue. So if you recall, they have to bring a statue to, I guess, the Eye Chamber to pacify, put the Eye to sleep or whatever. Remember in the story, when they're going through Silvereth's memories, there is a statue that is nearby, which I don't remember if they call it the demon of the gluttonous dark god or whatever, but it was a statue. Was that statue being used for the same purpose that these statues are being used for the sleeping dark god? Or the awakening dark god now, I guess you could call it. Should Silvereth have destroyed it by then? Or back then or whatever? Because if I recall correctly, he destroys it. So yeah, Anywho, so what are your thoughts? Write it down in the comments, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself or stay up to date with what's going on with it, you can do so by going down to the link in the description, which should take you to the itch.io page where you can download and play the game yourself. If you would like to support the project, consider subscribing to their Patreon. And I think, actually no, I don't think. I know that the next part is already available on their Patreon because Bajaker already told me that he read it because he subscribes to their Patreon and he said that it made him cry. So like, yeah, you have that to look forward to. But well, me, as a normal non-subscribee to their Patreon, will have to wait a month along with all of you guys, unless you subscribe to their Patreon and you can read it ahead of time. But yeah, so it kind of makes it seem like that is the climax of the story. So could it be that there's just 2 more updates? Because, you know, it's the climax and then the resolution. So yeah. Anyways, if you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, which gives you earlier access to these videos as they're being scheduled. This is being recorded on the 21st of July? Is it July? Is it still July? I'm like so confused right now. So is it being recorded on the 21st of July? Should come out by hopefully the 22nd, 23rd. It just depends on how busy I am. And that will be for the channel members. But for everyone else, it'll come out in August. So yeah, you know. Yeah, it's August. Yeah, August. So yeah, you know, become a channel member. Help support me. Help support the channel. And, you know, shows your support, I guess. If you can't do that though, you know, just give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I do have a Ko-fi in case you want to support through there. Yeah, any form of support is appreciated. And I do have a throne, so yeah. Anyways, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.